Hey, Sean, do you know what? I think that our listener want real protection against cyber risk, and I know that High Trust is the leader in cybersecurity assurance. But what makes them the go-to choice?
Well, according to our friends at HITRUST, because their framework covers 100% of the known tactics, techniques, and procedures, in 2024, organizations with a HITRUST certification had just a 0.59% incident rate, meaning 99.41 stayed breach free.
That's solid, but what about staying sharp over time?
HITRUST regular certification process isn't just a checkbox, it actually drives improvement. Repeat customers see up to 54% fewer corrective actions needed year over year. And now, with their new AI security assessment and certification, you can actually tackle AI risk with confidence as well.
Then check out the iTrust framework. Go to hightrustalliance.net to learn more.
Phillip Miller, good
It's
to
good to
see
see
you.
you.
Good to see you. Here we are in San Francisco,
Beautiful city.
right?
So sunny today.
Is the sun was in your eyes a moment ago? But how did you get here? Did you fly in?
I did. Flew in from a farm in Southern Virginia
Right.
and got here by way of Charlotte, North Carolina.
Look at that. Did you fly over any farms here? There's plenty of farms, lots of cattle, a lot of sheep. I don't know if you got to see any from the
We
plane.
came in the dark. It was late last night.
No glow in the dark cows, hopefully.
No glow in the dark cows.
All
Don't
right.
need any of those.
No. But I don't think where we met. Was it Black Hat? Or was it? I don't remember where we met.
I don't even either. It's
I
been
don't
so
know.
long.
But anyway, we've kept in touch wherever we started following each other, and I'm particularly a fan of yours because of the work you do on the farm, and obviously your role as a CISO. Very different mindsets of things, but perhaps a lot of overlaps too. And you're actually going to join us on a webinar where we talk about kind of the future of farming and agriculture and food safety and
That's
all
right.
that fun stuff. We're talking about
Very
cybersecurity as part of that. Absolutely. So, but you've taken the last 18 months to kind of, well, you'll tell me what you did, but I presume to kind of refresh and regenerate, and you now have a new role as a full-time CISO. I want to talk to you a little bit about what that transition back into full-time is like, but first, well, maybe a quick intro for the folks listening and watching here. What you've been up to prior to the 18 months virtual CISO, and then because you've had many roles.
That's
in the
right. I've been
CISO role.
in and out of all kinds of different organizations, from
So give us
retail.
give a little history there.
Yeah, so retail, Payless Shoe Source or Collective Brands, Brooks Brothers. Then I did consulting for a while with AWS. That was the pandemic years. Those were great
Right,
years. Got to work with lots of very large enterprises on their journey to the cloud. And then with NetApp for a while as their CISO. And then following that, really wanted to strike out on my own, kind of do a little bit of what I did at AWS, but under my own banner, a company called Corporal, which I've had for quite a long time. It's also the farm is connected to Corporal as well.
Look at
And my wife and I participate together in that as a business. Mostly been 18 months of helping startup companies who are trying to feel their way around the cybersecurity or ag tech landscape and some AI landscape stuff. And there's a crowded field of people trying to enter the market, but also a crowded field of
In terms
voices.
of ag tech or in
all
terms
of
of
them.
cyber?
Yeah, cyber,
Oh, okay.
ag tech, AI. Lots of people trying to get a slice of that pie, and many of them don't know how to tell their story. And particularly, they don't know how to tell that story to enterprise buyers. And you see it on LinkedIn, right? The CISO saying, please don't email me, please don't use my cell phone, please
Certainly don't
don't
call
send
me.
me a message on LinkedIn, don't send a letter to my home address, right? And I've always tried to be the opposite, because I recognize that as an enterprise CISO, I'm only as good as the tech that I can bring to the organization, coupled with my experience, the business processes, but underpinning the whole industry is this great group of founders and businesses that say, we can solve the problem. We think you have that problem. So if I close myself off to that community, then I'm not going to be very effective as an enterprise CISO. So I really wanted to spend 18 months deeply entrenched in that community. So I worked with all kinds of founders, and just some really great conversations. Just like today, I was just with Demi from Panarays
Oh, yeah.
and Dean from Axonius. Right, these are long-term relationships that I've been able to foster over the last 18 months, which is very hard to do when you're in that enterprise seat
Right.
because everything's so transactional.
Right. Yeah. Very. I just connected with Demi, funny enough, before the conference. So hopefully I'll run into him at some point in the next few days. But third-party risk obviously is
It sure
it's
is.
a
Yeah.
big topic. So yeah, it's very interesting because if one is in a role within an organization, it becomes about that organization. And to your point, I think you can kind of get insulated / isolated from stuff outside of that because
Yes.
MBOs are driven by annual reviews and perhaps even bonuses are tied to how well the company does. And so, and of course, hopefully, if you're doing your job as a CISO, you're connecting that to the risk and protecting the revenue, which gives you a focal point, which is great. But to your point, can maybe keep you isolated from some of the stuff that might come in, perhaps, or don't know what the exposures are. Maybe you're not looking at things, say, the right way, or perhaps in a more open way. So you talked a bit about the 18 months. What are some of the things you saw and heard that maybe folks sitting we'll get to your own new CISO role, but folks sitting in a seat, working with their executive leadership team and perhaps even the board, what did you see in the last 18 months that maybe some of those folks in that seat might not, especially if they close themselves off from vendors? What are they might be missing?
Yeah, I think probably the first thing is that every founder has experienced the same pain at some place, either in an enterprise gig or a lot of our founders come out of the defense industry, right? But they are actually practitioners. And so they don't just sort of wake up one day and say, I want to make 100 million in ARR. They come at it and said, I was experiencing a high volume of alerts coming from my SIM. And I wanted to come up with a way to make it so that those low quality alerts could be solved with an agentic AI solution.
Right.
Or I see way too many messages still getting through my spam filter. And so I want to bring new technology that helps the end user better bring their human intelligence to that problem. And so I think that when you're sitting in that enterprise seat and have all of those OKRs, your to-do lists, you have the volume of alerts that telling you, hey, I've got all these excess vulnerabilities or I've got legacy tech, you start to think that the only way I can solve this problem is to go to my existing major provider, Microsoft, Google, Amazon, and you forget that these companies have marketplaces.
Right.
And if you explore the marketplaces, or you can come to a conference like this and engage directly with the startup community, you can really find that sweet spot of somebody who will be an extension of your team, solve the problem, but know that you're also not like harming your underlying ecosystem, right? Because that's the unique thing
It's
about
a big investment.
Yeah. And being part of a big enterprise, you've got lots more responsibilities for protecting your data, your customer privacy. You can't just go buy any random thing off the shelf and incorporate it in your enterprise. So I would say
marketplace is key.
marketplace is key.
Okay.
Look for vendors that are being sponsored through like the AWS CrowdStrike Accelerator, the RSA Innovation Sandbox, right? These are ways in which you can sort of short circuit some of that validation. Also look at who their logos are, and I know that there's always controversy around that. But there are enterprises that do so much
behind
due
the logos,
diligence.
hopefully there's a CISO.
CISO and due
can talk to.
diligence, right? And I know that if Bank of America has started using a product, it's gone through so much validation and certification that chances are I'm not going to find anything they've missed.
Right. Correct me if I'm wrong, though, or your perspective on this. Just because Bank of America may have recognized the problem and recognized they could solve that problem with a certain set of technology doesn't mean any organization can, right?
No.
Because teams are different. Obviously, the companies are different. Teams are different. The rest of the tech stack is different, perhaps. How does a CISO kind of, well, probably a conversation, but how does a CISO really get their head wrapped around their environment, their needs related to perhaps others, and tap into the community?
Well, you hit on a key word there, team. And this is where a lot of my advice into the founder community has been is stop selling to the CISO, sell to the team. Because the team is the one who has to actually fix the problem. And the engineers and architects that are designing and engineering around the problem are the ones who need to be deeply involved in what the next solution to that problem is. And so, yes, as CISOs, we can inject a level of, this is a program that I want you to go and find new entrants to try to solve. Here's some that I've seen. Please go do your own due diligence. And so when we have a CISO-led buyer cycle, it often leads to poor outcomes. And I've seen this whether I was on the consulting side, interim CISO work, or stepping into any enterprise role. There's always tech that has been purchased and not fully leveraged.
Software.
Yeah, but it's kind of different now, right? Because you're paying for it.
Set and forget it.
Well, you're paying a SaaS fee every month for it, and it may be giving you marginal value. And this is the hardest conversation that you have as a CISO with a supplier is, I don't want to leverage you anymore. And I don't want to leverage you because your team didn't give my team value. Because inevitably when you have that conversation, they say to you, but your team didn't ask us. And I'm like, but you're the supplier. You want us to leverage your technology, so please don't just sell and walk away and expect that automatic renewal 3 years down the road, because we're no longer in a world where there's only one player, right? Or two players, like antivirus use, like two players, right? Now there's 8 or 9 highly competent EDR players.
So we're talking a bit about tech, even if the CISO says we have this problem, team, go do some due diligence. You said here's a few tech options to consider. Go explore. Do you find that we start with the tech in most cases, and is that the right way, or do we have smart people on our teams that perhaps? My personal view of security is, if we actually build business properly, we can reduce exposure and really reduce the reliance on technology and other solutions to mitigate the risk that we've introduced in the first place. So I'm wondering if turning to the team to say, here's our exposure, here's our risk, how would you solve it? Versus we've been told, or I've seen and I've heard from others, that there's this issue that we might come across, and we've heard that there's technology to solve it. Because to me, it's two different things. I don't know your thoughts on that in terms of, can we change the business, or do we just turn to the tech immediately?
So we've got dual problems here, right? We have an engine of business that exists to deliver stakeholder value, to be shareholders, customers, etc. And then you have this group of individuals that want to destroy that relationship, threat actors. And the individuals in business that are trying to drive revenue are often very unfamiliar with how a threat actor can disrupt it. We all understand ransomware and we understand spam and those things, but the murkier world is often very inaccessible to a business leader. So the most important job a CISO has is to help the business leaders understand for their line of business, their P&L accountability, where are the choke points that they're most susceptible to. To give them not just that information, but then ask them, how much is it worth, in a sense, to mitigate that risk? And then when you have that answer, then you can inform your teams and enable them to have, the tools, the technology, the business processes, because you as the accountable CISO for risk and the accountable P&L owner are having executive level conversations, hopefully supported by a board, that are in place to make the enterprise safer for customers to transact. So it is a team and a business problem first, tech second for me. But that's not common in the industry. And you can see that by just how many new tech companies emerge and the feature function sprawl amongst existing tech as vendors say, well, I see somebody's going after this market. I don't want to lose out. In fact, I think cybersecurity vendors have fear of missing out more than any other part of the tech ecosystem that I've ever seen.
Yeah.
It's like ERP all over again.
Right? Exactly. But I love that viewpoint, and it makes me wonder. So the team clearly, well, good team hopefully understands the business and the operations and vulnerabilities and exposure. Talking security teams here.
Yes.
That then can help the organization achieve what they're trying to achieve safely. I hear very often that CISOs are closely connected to their team and closely connected to the technology, and find it difficult, I'll say, to have a conversation with their executive leadership peers and perhaps even the board at that business level. So what do you see, not just from you and your CISO role and virtual CISO role, but from a company's perspective as you engage with them, either as a virtual or even in your new role? What is the business team looking for from a CISO, given the other stuff we just talked about?
Yeah, let me pull something from earlier in my career as a way to describe this. I joined a paper manufacturing company in late 1999. I was with them for about 10 years. I knew absolutely nothing about large process manufacturing.
Okay.
I knew
These are like the big spools of
paper, yeah. I knew very little about safety in a forest where we cut down trees to make the pulp. I knew nothing about the chemicals, right?
Mm-hmm.
And here I was coming in as a person who had varying different responsibilities, but my final responsibility was for securing the enterprise. And I needed to understand not just the task orientation of my job, but also how the business is glued together. And any CISO that steps in should make that their first priority. First 30 days, try to deeply understand the business. Get out there, whether it's on the manufacturing floor, or on the shop floor. I did retail, or in my current role, get into the offices where people are engaging with the customers, and understand how does the business work. Then understand how the business leaders, your colleagues, are making changes to improve or retain customers, profit and loss. Learn the language of the business and the board, so that when you want to have a conversation about impacting that from a information security, data protection, privacy, cybersecurity basis point, you've got a frame of reference that is from their lens, not just yours. And then they, in turn, also have an accountability, right, to understand enough about the world that the CISO is operating. But that's common to them, right? They understand that even if you're the product person, you have to understand marketing.
Right.
You don't do the marketing; you rely on the marketing team, but you know that they're a valued
You know, I also
partner.
know what to give them so that they can do
Yes,
the marketing.
right. Hopefully, a good product,
Right. So, so I don't know how to ask this question. If it's what's the first question, or if there's an important question or a common question. I'm hoping you can give me an example that one from manufacturing, paper company, one from technology, NetApp and AWS, maybe one from financial services in your current role. What do you ask the business team, the leadership team, as you're getting started in each of those three scenarios? I'm going to guess they're going to be slightly different, maybe. To give you what you need to establish that relationship and the connection to then further the understanding of the business.
I mean, I think the first thing, and this is sort of common to all of them, is where does the business see its biggest non-cybersecurity risks, right? Because most companies are going to have information security, cyber somewhere on their risk, but what are they seeing as other risks? Because that will inform you as to how they're thinking about that. Then I think let's pick on manufacturing. Is understanding how does the product get created, because when you understand how the product's created, you can start saying, okay, we're going to have technology in each of these different places in the product creation cycle, and every time there's technology, there's data, and then there's information risk. So if you can understand and like model that out from a business process manufacturing perspective, it really helps you from a cyber perspective. Retail, though, where most retail is merchandising and selling, right? So their focus is customer. How do we engage and what do we promise that customer? I think that's probably my first question. What are we promising the customer? Are we promising them that we're going to gather their information and only ever use it in a sales transaction? Or are we doing marketing off of it? Are we selling some of this to other people? Because the customer trust relationship is critical. And then financial services, fintech, all of that stuff, regulatory and legal, I think, to a certain extent, are the leading
Still king
elements.
and queen.
Still king and queen, because obviously all the customer stuff still matters, but you can't get the right to transact with those customers if you don't follow the rules. And there are external rules that you have to follow.
Right. So we're here. I think we're doing on time. Yeah, we have a couple minutes left. Let's take part of the theme from RSAC Conference here, which about the community, many voices. Obviously, you're here in person, I presume, to partake in what it offers in that sense. What do you look for here when you're on site connecting with people? What sessions do you go to? What conversations do you have? Maybe rooted in what we've just been talking about, or is there something else that's even bigger top of mind?
Yeah, so first priority is efficiency. I want to meet with all of the key vendors that we have in our enterprise and do it over a 3-day period so that I can not be trying to do that when I'm in the office. So that's my big rock. That's what I fill my agenda up with first. Second priority is peer group conversations. And those don't happen in the meeting rooms, right? They happen in the hotel lobbies late into the evening. That's where we can have conversations that are, pure Chatham House rules, off the record, and start thinking about how can we help other people in this community. And from there, this is where, mentoring programs emerge. Finding ways to bridge company gaps come from there. And then third is the founder community. And so I'm
emerging
here.
Tech stuff.
Yeah, like AWS and CrowdStrike have an accelerator. I helped 3 of the companies that are in that accelerator in their preparation journey. So I'm going to go cheer them on a little bit, right? That's the fun part. I don't go to the parties. I don't really have much time for that. I'd rather have the individual conversations. And yeah, presentations can be really good if it's a practitioner, which unfortunately is getting a little harder to find here. I'd like to see more practitioner-led conversations so that my team would want to come and not just be a CISO
Right.
hangout.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, great points there, Philip, of course. And I have to thank you for taking the time. You're very busy. I
It's
saw
always
your
good, though.
calendar.
It is
I saw your
kind of
calendar
crazy,
last
isn't
week.
it?
I was like, I don't know where you're going to fit in, my friend. You have so much going on, but I'm so grateful that you found this time to do what you described in your second bullet, which is to find ways to help the rest of the community. I hope that this conversation does just that.
I hope so, too.
People that aren't able to come on site in San Francisco and don't have a chance to connect with you at some point. So hopefully this conversation and story helps many.
And I'm always happy to connect on LinkedIn if people want to have further conversations.
Yeah. So you're a good guy. I appreciate you, and I love getting inside your brain and understanding how you look at this world and CISO role. It's a role that's had a lot of scrutiny.
It does.
It comes with a lot of weight
Yes.
on the shoulders, and yeah, I appreciate you putting on that cape and taking on that role, especially for the organization that you're working for at the moment. So an important
Well, thank
thing.
you very much. And I appreciate you setting time aside for us to have a conversation. Got to invest in our friendships. Those are important.
Absolutely. Yeah, most important. So, well, thank you so much. Thanks everybody for listening and watching this episode here on location with Sean and Marco. Stay tuned. itspmagazine.com/RSAC25 for all of our coverage. Connect with Philip, and we'll see you on the show floor here in one of the Moscone locations. Thanks.
Thanks, everyone.
Awesome.
Hey, Sean, do you know what? I think that our listener want real protection against cyber risk. And I know that High Trust is the leader in cybersecurity assurance. But what makes them the go-to choice?
Well, according to our friends at HITRUST, because their framework covers 100% of the known tactics, techniques, and procedures, in 2024, organizations with a HITRUST certification had just a 0.59% incident rate, meaning 99.41 stayed breach-free.
That's solid. But what about staying sharp over time?
HITRUST regular certification process isn't just a checkbox, it actually drives improvement. Repeat customers see up to 54% fewer corrective actions needed year over year. And now with their new AI security assessment and certification, you can actually tackle AI risk with confidence as well.
Then check out the iTrust framework. Go to hightrustalliance.net to learn more.